James Vituscka wanted to be the journalist who broke the big Hollywood stories. Instead, he's become the story, and not in a good way. He's turned himself into the least credible witness in the entire Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni circus, and he's managed to do it by allegedly lying, flip-flopping, and torching his own career. And the best part? Every time he changes his story, he drags Blake Lively even deeper into the mess. Let's rewind. Vituscka used to work at the Daily Mail. His job was straightforward: dig up gossip, churn out exclusives, and stay neutral. But neutrality was never in the cards for James. He became part of the very lawsuit he was supposed to be covering, inserting his own texts into filings, exposing his sources, and acting shocked when the Daily Mail fired him for crossing every journalistic line imaginable. He wasn't a reporter anymore, he was a player in the drama. And those texts he inserted, they weren't harmless. They included the words "sexually assaulted" about Justin Baldoni. Later, James tried to say, no, that was just a typo, he meant harassed, as if those two words are interchangeable. But even if you buy that excuse, his own emails and messages to editors were dripping with insinuations that Blake had no consent, no creative control, and that Baldoni was silencing women on set. Don't take my word for it. Look at his email to Daily Mail editors titled, "The real reason the cast of It Ends With Us shut out star Justin Baldoni." He wrote, and I quote, "The film is about abuse, so for a man to try and control the narrative about abuse of women is not acceptable. It is the same as if the government would try to tell women what to do with their bodies. Not acceptable." That wasn't journalism. That was a political op-ed disguised as a report. He equated Baldoni's directing to government control over women's bodies, while painting Blake as the savior. Then he added, "This film has sex scenes, so for a man to direct a film involving intimate sex scenes with a woman without allowing the woman to have any input is unacceptable. That's not subtle. That's an accusation that Justin ignored Blake's consent. That's the same narrative Blake would later take to court, and it came straight from Vituscka's keyboard. And he didn't stop there. He also wrote, "There is no love for Justin from the cast on this film, and he will not be getting any praise from them." That's not reporting, that's a smear campaign draft. He was literally writing the anti-Baldoni storyline before it ever hit the tabloids. He even slipped in a line that said, "We cannot use this about Ryan Reynolds, Blake's husband," showing that he knew exactly how far the gossip extended but chose to filter it. That isn't neutrality. That's PR triage. So, let's just be real. Vituscka wasn't reporting the story. He was writing it. He was the ghostwriter for Sloane's talking points. And the second those talking points ended up in a lawsuit, he panicked. When it all went public, Vituscka tried to reinvent himself. Suddenly, he wasn't the guy feeding Sloane's narrative. He was the victim. He claimed Daily Mail forced him to sign a false declaration under threat of termination. He claimed Brian Friedman and Melissa Nathan twisted his words and cost him his career. He claimed he'd always just been trying to tell the truth. But the receipts Katie Joy from Without a Crystal Ball pulled say otherwise. She allegedly has his emails, his PDFs, his HR notices, his drafts of declarations. And they all point to the same reality. James Vituscka blamed Sloane when he was mad at Sloane, blamed the Daily Mail when he was mad at them, and now blames Friedman and Nathan because he's desperate to survive. His villain changes every time his mood does. And that's why his new story is laughable. He now swears Sloane never told him Blake was assaulted or harassed. He says his earlier declaration wasn't the whole truth. He says Daily Mail pressured him to lie. He paints himself as the poor scapegoat. The problem? His own words from just months before prove the opposite. Let's look at how pathetic this smear really was. They wanted people to believe Baldoni was both too powerful and somehow too weak to even direct his own movie. Which is it? Was he the tyrant controlling everything, or the guy who needed Blake to swoop in and rescue the production? You can't have it both ways. It's Schrodinger's director. He was simultaneously all-powerful and completely powerless, depending on the angle Sloane and Vituscka needed that week. And what were the shocking accusations against him? That he insisted on doing things his way. Imagine that. The guy who raised the money, produced the film, and was literally hired as the director is suddenly a villain because he directed. That's not misconduct. That's his job. But Vituscka spun it into proof of abuse. Then came the Colleen Hoover rewrite angle. Vituscka's email framed it like Colleen herself demanded rewrites because it was her story and her mother's legacy. Except Colleen has openly admitted she was barely on set. She was there a couple days, tops. The actual screenwriter was Christy Hall, but she got thrown under the bus in this smear campaign. This wasn't Colleen rewriting anything. This was Blake muscling her way into creative control and hiding behind Colleen's name to make it look legitimate. And let's not kid ourselves. If Colleen really wanted a woman-only team, she could have sold her book rights to a female director from the start. She didn't. She trusted Justin, worked closely with him, and their collaboration was documented long before Blake turned the set into a battlefield. The sudden female empowerment spin was nothing but Blake's PR angle once she decided she wanted control. The irony? Baldoni wasn't some raging tyrant on set. He actually folded to Blake over and over again. He backed down when she threw fits about scenes. He backed down on wardrobe. He backed down on music. That's not a man steamrolling his star. That's a man walking on eggshells because he knew Blake would cause chaos if she didn't get her way. The idea that he was harassing her is laughable. The evidence points to creative clashes, not abuse. But that's what Vituscka sold. He framed it as systemic, sinister, political. He wrote emails comparing Baldoni to government control over women's bodies. He implied Blake had no voice in sex scenes. He fed the smear to his editors, and then he sat there, pretending he was just reporting neutrally. And let's not forget, allegedly Vituscka told Friedman and Nathan in December 2024 that Sloan never said Blake was assaulted. He was explicit, and those texts are in discovery. But now, in his shiny new declaration, he acts like they twisted his words and misled the court. Except his own receipts show he was the one twisting everything, sometimes to defend Baldoni, sometimes to destroy him, depending on what mood he was in. His new declaration wasn't even notarized. He literally tossed out a piece of paper saying, "Actually, I was forced to lie," without any of the legal safeguards that make a statement credible. That's reckless. That's desperate, and it's going to collapse the second anyone pulls up his old emails. Because here's the reality. Vituscka admitted in writing that Sloan lied. He admitted she fed him defamatory info. He admitted he didn't regret helping Friedman defend Justin. And then, when his career went up in flames, he changed the story again to blame them. That's not testimony. That's perjury. And now, his credibility is dead. He isn't a journalist. He isn't a reliable witness. He's a cautionary tale about what happens when you get too close to the story you're supposed to be covering, in my opinion. And Blake Lively? Every time Vituscka tries to rewrite his role, he makes her look worse. Because his own words prove the smear campaign was built to protect her, and he was one of the architects. He thought he could play every side and come out clean. Instead, he's torched his reputation, exposed Sloan's smear tactics, and dragged Blake into deeper waters than ever. And trust me, this is only going to get uglier. Hit like, hit subscribe, and tell me what you think below. And if you don't, I will be taking a page out of Blake Lively's book and will be subpoenaing you all. And if you want to see all the raw receipts laid out, go watch Without a Crystal Ball with Katie Joy. She breaks this down with the emails and screenshots that James probably wishes never saw the light of day. Also, if any lawyers are watching, these are just my opinions and speculation based off the information that I've seen. And no, I am not being paid by Justin Baldoni or Wayfarer.